So interestingly, while V2 and V-mart we're seeing the buzz coming in good numbers, Avenue Supermart was a bit of a subduedness that we saw, moderation in terms of their growth. So let me start with Avenue Supermart. When you look at the standalone numbers, revenue coming in at 13,711 crores approximately, which is a growth of around 18% on a year-on-year basis. But last quarter, they managed to report growth of 20%. So moderation in that revenue growth percent that we're seeing. 6 stores they managed to add. Now analysts believe that the company would be adding around 50 stores is what they anticipated at the beginning of the year. So maybe they'll have to increase the pace of store expansion. How is that shaping up? Moderation and growth is one part, but they've also seen some bit of an improvement in efficiency numbers of theirs. So revenue per store, that's surely seeing an improvement for that. So keeping an eye out on that. But moderation and growth is the main reason why you're seeing Avenue Supermart quite subdued. On the other hand, V-mart as well as V2 Retail, good numbers. V-mart, the SSSG growth stood at 11% on a year-on-year basis. Revenue growth of 16% on a comparison of the YOY basis. Stores added a 7, better than expected in terms of what the street was expecting. So keeping an eye on that, and blended revenue per store also saw a growth of around 12% for them. V2 Retail also very strong growth. So seems like that SSSG growth of 37%. Mainly the smaller town cities is now mainly seeing a bigger participation, and that's something that we'll be keeping an eye out on. But V2 and V-mart Retail story, surely a good Q1 update so far is what we've seen coming in.
But Vinnii, just for my understanding or for the viewers' understanding, would it be advisable to compare Avenue Supermarts to the like of V-mart or V2 Retail?
It's not a direct comparison, but that's the closest comparison that we have comparing it to V-mart. Avenue Supermart cannot be directly compared. They have their general merchandise as well as the segment and apparel segment which is there. So yes, that's there when you compare it to V-mart and retail, but that's why they go hand in hand, but it's not too much when you compare on the grocery front.
On the grocery front,
So that's not a direct comparison, absolute basis, but that's how they compare right now.
Right now, okay. So that's the way how the growth outlook is looking like for the retailers. Only a handful names have come out
that you have
right
actually with Avenue Supermart. There's not much of a comparison that you have in the direct form.
In the direct form, maybe later on, maybe you could also add Blinkit to that list because they are doing something similar
on the grocery front.
On the grocery front,
that is. I must tell you that ordering from Blinkit and getting your order placed at D-marts are two different things. Earlier, when I used to go to Avenue Supermarts, it's always used to be that crowded.
But it still is. It still is. Irrespective of them adding these stores. The stores are packed, actually.
Yeah, whenever you see them, there's a huge line outside.
Yes,
so that trend is there, but they may be lagging a bit in terms of the growth which is coming in for the company.
Absolutely. So that is just the retailers, the ones that we've got the updates on. And Vinnii is going to definitely have a very busy week, very busy earnings, because after the Q1 operational update, she'll have to track all the earnings of all the retailers. But thank you so much, Vinnii, for putting that into context. But let's take that question then to Lancelot Dcunha, who's joining us on the show, to understand how should one look at these retailers and which side of the retailer should one bet at, and if they should actually bet in that particular category. A very good morning to you, Lancelot. Thank you so much for joining us on ET Now. And Lancelot, let's talk about retailers in particular. When you saw the election verdict, you saw a massive rise in the FMCG sector, hoping the fact that there would be some more reforms or policies directed towards that direction. Keeping that aside, keeping any of the policy moves aside or reforms move aside, what's your take purely coming on the business front for these retailers, and how should one look at it? Because that question to Vinnii was, can you actually compare Avenue Supermart to a V-mart or V2 Retail?
Yeah, so I think, one has to look at it given the overall, let's say, inflation that is coming off. One of the reasons why these businesses or the retail was impacted clearly was because of rising inflation in the last 12 months. And that rising inflation actually eats into the spending ability of the middle class, and that is where the bulk of the spending used to happen. And which is why, in order to maintain volumes, most of these organized retailers had to increase reduce margins to try to increase volumes, and that impacted their EBITDA growth. So given that background, now we are seeing inflation coming off, as well as the government, there is an expectation that they will look at policies that are pro-rural India in order to bring back some money in the hands of the consumers, and that should spur retail spending once again. While having said that, we are seeing pressures as far as costs are concerned for all these retailers, and the and growth in terms of being able to expand their reach. Many of the retailers, for example, like DMart, have moved into the alternate space where they take orders and do deliveries, and so they are competing with the likes of Blinkit and Amazon, etc., which is providing delivery based consumer goods. So they are then competing with that space as well. But overall, it is a space which is interesting and will see significant growth. The flip side is that the valuations have been, relatively on the higher side for all the companies in this space. And unless valuations come off, or growth begins to justify the high valuations, it will be difficult for you to make an entry into buying into these at this point in time. Either wait to see when there's a price correction, one would get an opportunity to add to these companies to your portfolio, or if there's any negative surprises and you see some kind of a correction in the prices, that would be a good opportunity to buy. Long term, there is definitely going to be a shift from unorganized retail to organized retail, and that trend continues, and we will see that growth reflected in these companies' performances.
All right. Thank you so much, Lancelot, for giving your take on the retailers. But with this, viewers, it's time to slip into a very short break.